Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. This is the Nasda's Thread. Today on the channel we'll be learning how to make a short pant with zipper fly and side pockets. If this is something you're interested in, you want to keep watching, and if you're yet to subscribe to the channel, do well to subscribe and make sure to like this video, and let's get started. Now I will be needing your zip and then fabric. So my fabric, I have almost 2 yards of fabric. So you'll be needing from 1.5 to 2 yards depending on your size. So I went ahead to fold my fabric into 2. So you're going to use your hip circumference divided by 4 plus an extra 4 to 5 inches depending on your size. Now I'm starting by rolling a line at the top which will serve as our starting line. We're going to start our measurements from there. Now for this short, I want my band to be 2 inches wide, right? You can use 1.5, you can use 2 inches. You can also use 1 inch depending on the wideness of the band you want. So I'm going to place my tape 2 inches outwards from the line which I marked. Okay, the line I marked as my starting line. That will also serve as the waistline. I'll place my tape 2 inches outward and I'll mark my hip point and I'll roll a line across that. Then the next line we're going to mark is the crouch depth. So the crouch depth is gotten by dividing your round hip by 4 and then adding 1.5 inches to that. So still placing your tape 2 inches outward, go ahead and mark your crouch depth. So for me, mine is 12.5 inches. I just mark that down and I'm rolling my line at that point. Now the next line we need is the full length. So still placing your tape 2 inches outward, go ahead and mark the full length wherever you want it to end. If you're making this as a trouser, like full length to the ankle, go ahead and just mark that out. So I've gone ahead to just mark that. So we have the length, we have the crouch line, we have the hip, and then the waistline, which is the top. Now you're going to start by placing quarter of your round hip plus half of an inch. So your round hip divided by 4 plus half of an inch. Now if you want this to be free, I would advise you use you add 1 inch instead of half of an inch, which I did for this video. So go ahead and place quarter of your round hip plus 1 inch or half of an inch like I did. You place it at the hip line, place it at the waistline, and then at the crouch line, and you connect it together. Now to get the crouch extension, one thing you can do 2 of this. You can go ahead and then divide your round hip by 16 inches, which is 1, or you divide what you have here, which is the measurement you took, quarter of your round hip plus half of an inch. You divide that by 4 and then place that to get the crouch extension so you can achieve your crouch curve. So I'm going to just take that. So either of the measurements I mentioned, you can either do it by dividing your round hip by 16 or you divide by what you have here already marked down. So I'm just going to place that and I will mark it down. So what I have for mine was 2.75 inches, and I'm going to just place mine down and mark it. So whatever you get for yours, go ahead and place it down. So that measurement depends on your hip circumference. Now I went up from that angle by 1 inch so that I can achieve my curve perfectly. I'm going in with my curve rule to now make my connection. So this is what we have for this, right? This is what it looks like. Now the next thing we're going to do is to go over to the waistline. At the waistline, you're going to place quarter of your round waist measurement. That's the round waist divided by 4, okay? Now the next thing we're going to be adding is that. So we're going to add 1 inch for that and then 1 inch extra for allowance. So I just placed 2 inches on that side. Now using the curve rule, go ahead and connect to the end of your hip line, just the way I'm doing right now. So already placed the hip measurement, you don't need to encroach into that line. So now that we have this, we're going to go ahead and work on the full length. So now for the full length measurement, you need to take the measurement from where this is going to end. All right, like wherever you measured for your length, go ahead and take the measurement around there. That is the measurement you should be placing there. All right, go ahead and measure that and then you place it. So ensure that you're taking the accurate measurements. Now you can see that I'm placing my row, the curve was actually so much. Okay, and I had to go back and take the measurement again for that part. Now, while taking the measurement, ensure that your tape is not tight around that area. It is loosed. Okay, it is loose so that the shot can easily enter while you're wearing this. So I went ahead to retake my measurement and I placed this. Now using my rule again, you can see that the curve I'm going to achieve is different from what I should have had. Now after placing this measurement here, the next thing we're going to do is to just place our dart. So to get the dart, go ahead and get the midpoint of that crouch measurement you have, the crouch horizontal measurement. Go ahead and get the midpoint. Then you make a straight line going towards the top to get the midpoint. So this will help us achieve the dart. The dart is going to sit at the right place. Now for the dart, we're going to go half of an inch on both sides of your dart line to measure up 1 inch in total. So go out in and out half of an inch on both sides, and then the dart length will be 4 inches, and connect with your rule just the way I'm doing. So if you don't know how to connect it, this is how you're going to connect your dart together. So now that I have this, this is what we're going to be working with. Now we want to cut it out. So at the top part, I'm going to add half of an inch, which will be for joining allowance when I'm attaching my band to the shorts, right? So ensure to take this measurement so that you're not encroaching into your measurement. So now before cutting this, I noticed that I didn't add any hemming allowance to my shorts, which could totally destroy everything I'm doing. So I added 2 inches because you know we have to hem the edge. It's going to reduce the length if you don't add this. So I added 2 inches for my hemming allowance. I drew the line and I'm going to connect it to the first the line I had there initially. All right. So ensure to add your hemming allowance to your measurement and then go ahead and cut out the other parts. So now we're going to just split this open since this part is closed up. So this is what we're going to have for the front. I'm going ahead to go to fold another piece for the back. Now the back needs to be wider than what you had at the front. So the back needs to be at least 4 to 5 inches wide than what you had in front. You're going to leave some allowances at the top and then at both sides of your fold. You can see how I placed mine down. So now what I want to do is to extend the back. Now the back is usually higher than the front because of the butt. So you need your butt to sit well. You don't want your short opening up at the back, right? So now this depends on your butt. Okay, depends on your how big your butt is. You can go up by 2 inches, you can go up by 1.5, you can go up by 1 inch. It totally depends on your butt. So I went up by 1.5 inches, and then from that point of where the front ends, the center front, I came in by 2 inches. So I'm taking that 1.5 inches on this line right now. I hope you understand what I'm saying. So the next thing I want to do is to replace that 2 inches which we came in from that side, from the center front, we replace it to the side. So now I'm going to just extend the waist measurement. We're supposed to extend our lines before doing all that. So next, we're going to just make a horizontal line, a slanted line, sorry, coming from the top here to meet that extension which we marked earlier. You can see what I have right there. Now, I'm just ensuring that what I have on the front is the same as what I have at the back. So you're going to measure the waist line and ensure that what you have at the front and the back is matching. So I have 10 inches in front and then 10 inches at the back, which works perfectly. So now I'm adding 1 inch to the sides for my allowance. Remember, I didn't add any allowances to the front, so I'm adding my allowances to the back. I'm adding 1 inch to the sides. This is like the sides of our short and not the center. Remember, the place where we have the crouch is where the center falls to. So I'm connecting it to what I have around the waist, and I'll just use the straight part on my rule to connect it to the full length. Okay. So now that we have that, I'm just going to extend the line around the crotch area for the back. We're going to extend that so we can, take measurements and do the other things. So for the sides, the center front, I'm adding 1.5 inches to the back. Okay, that's to the down part of it after the crouch line. Now for the crouch extension for the back, what we're going to do is to just extend it out by 2 inches. So you come out from the front by 2 inches and just extend it there by 2 inches. Next, I'm going to connect it to that 1.5 inches point which I measured earlier, around the thigh area, around where my short is going to end. You can see that I'm actually cross-checking and checking that my curves are perfect. Now, the one thing with making shorts is that if you cut this out and it's not, the curves aren't nice, you'll notice that your trouser or your short isn't sitting perfectly on your body. So the next thing I want to do is to just connect from the waist to the crouch area. So I'll start off by just making like lines, but before then what I want to do is to just extend from that crouch curve of the front. I'm coming up by 1 inch just like I did for the front. Now this is to ensure that the crouch for the back isn't deepened, because you don't want it to be deep. You want this to sit perfectly on your body. Now I tried using my curve, it wasn't working, so I just used my free hand to just connect to the waist area, and this is what we have for this. So this is what it looks like. Just retouching my lines to ensure that it looks nice enough for us to work with. Now for the back, I'm going to just add 1/2 inch to that crotch curve of the back. This will help us to stitch this without encroaching into our measurement, our earlier measurement. Now that I have that down, I'm going to also make the dart for my back piece. So you can see that I'm measuring where I have this place, and then I'm also placing that on my back piece. Remember the crouch, that line is 4 inches long. Go ahead and extend. So I'm just simply doing the same thing I did for the front dart, extending it by 4 inches, going in and out on both sides by 1/2 inch, and then after that I will just connect it with my rule to meet the 4 inches point where my dart is going to sit. Okay, so now we have that down. This is what we have for the back. Now for the front, we're going to reduce the front by 1/2 inch. This will further help the short to sit properly around the front area. So I'm just going to just connect 1/2 inch from my center front to nothing at the side. You can see how I'm placing my rule. Please take note of these little things. From the center front, you go down by 1/2 inch and you connect to nothing by the side so that it aligns with the sides of the back piece, and take that out. All right, this will help our shorts to sit down perfectly. So this is what we have. Now I'm just taking off the fabric for the front piece so I can easily cut out the back. So just follow through with the lines you have for the back and just cut it out. Ensure that it's same length with what you had in front so that you don't make mistakes. So this is what we have for the piece. Now I'm going ahead to just notch my dart lines on both the front and the back. So now that we have this settled, the next one we want to achieve is the fly cover, okay, and the fly shade. Now for this, my fly, the zip is going to end around 7.5 inches. So you can either extend it to 8 or 7.5 inches. So your zip needs to end before, right where the curve starts towards the crouch area. So I decided to use 7.5 inches for mine. Now I have this piece of fabric which I've cut out. It's folded into 2 and it is 2 inches on fold and then 7.5 inches. Now the mistake I want to correct here is that while you're cutting this out, don't cut exactly 7.5 inches or 8 inches, whatever measurement you want to use for your zip. Okay, let it be 1 inch longer than the measurement. Okay, so take for example, mine is 7.5 inches. It should be 8.5 inches instead of 7.5 inches. It needs to be longer. So during the course of this video, I will tell you why it should be longer. So you notice that I'm cutting the first one on fold. Now go ahead and cut a second one. So the first one I just cut out is the shield, the zipper shield, while this one I'm cutting out is the zipper fly. So what I'm going to do is to just cut out this single while the first one was doubled. So take note of these things. So I have this down and I'm going to keep it aside. Now the next thing we're going to cut is the pockets for our piece. I've gone ahead to cut out this piece. So I have this folded into two for the two sides. On fold, it is 8 inches wide, then the length is 11 inches long. Now I'm going to bring in my piece. I will open up this piece, place them right side to right side. Remember, you need two of that for the both sides of your pocket. So you're going to place them right side to right side and then just place it underneath your front piece. So this is my front piece. I still have two of my front piece together, as you can see. So don't separate them, right? So place them together. Ensure that the sides are matching. Ensure that the sides are matching perfectly. Place them in a way that you have the sides matching perfectly. Now what I'm going to do is to go in on my pocket by 1.5 inches, and then I will come down for the pocket length by 7 inches. Okay, so we're trying to cut out the pocket. You go in by 1.5 and then you come down by 7 inches. Now I'm using my curve rule to do this. You can just use a slanted line depending on the kind of curve you're trying to achieve for your pocket opening. So this is what I have, and I'm going ahead to just cut it out. So after cutting it out, don't throw it away, just keep it at the side. You're still going to make use of it. Now I'm bringing in my pocket again, the piece for the pocket folded into two, okay, placed right side to right side. Now I'm going to use what I have on my front piece to trace out the opening for the pocket. You just cut that out. Ensure you place them well, that are matching at the top and at the sides also. So this is what I have. Now I'm going to further place it this way, so you can see that this is what it's going to look like. I'll place my piece on top, and then I'll bring out the piece I cut out from the front part of my short, okay, the part I said you should keep aside. Now you're going to align it together back. So you're trying to cut out what you had initially, so that by the time you attach, you start stitching to the back piece, everything is going to match perfectly. The curves are matching. It is not different from what you should have. So now that I have this down, I'm going to just trace out the parts that are not matching so that it's perfect. And now I'm going ahead to notch the part that I'll be attaching to the front piece so that I make no mistakes. Now we have that down. We're going to start stitching our piece. Now this is the front piece. What we're going to do is to stitch from the point where our zip is going to end, stitch it into the crouch line. We go ahead and stitch the dart line. So I'm doing the same thing I did for the other side. I'm just tracing this out. Now this will help me to simply just go to my machine and just stitch in my darts without any form of stress. And after that, from the point where this is going to end, where my zipper is going to end, I'll go ahead and stitch by 1/2 inch this way. Alright, then after doing this for the front, you're going to do the same thing to the back. Okay, you're going to stitch the darts. I'll go ahead and also place my darts on this other side of the back where I don't have it traced out. Remember, the length of the dart is 4 inches. Then you take 1/2 inch on both sides on the waist. Okay, the dart starts from the waist to the other end, and after that, go ahead and stitch the crouch area by 1/2 inch. So this is what the front looks like after I finish. Now at the point where this starts, I'm going to just make a snip, okay, just into it so that it's opened a little bit. Now we're going to start doing the zipper fly. If you don't know how to do this, you want to concentrate on this part very well so that you are not confused. Okay, so now this is the zip. We want to start working on this. So you need a short zip for this, but if you're using a long zip, if you have a long zip at hand, just know that you end up cutting it out. So now to start off, this is where we're going to now make adjustments to what we cut out earlier for the zipper shield and the zipper fly. Okay, remember I said you should have 1 inch extra added to the length you want to use, whether 7.5 or 1/2 inch. So I brought in mine to place down, and then I noticed that it was shorter than what I wanted. Okay, so instead of just doing it like that and having a shabby result, just go ahead and cut an extra one. So you can see me placing this down. I noticed that, okay, this would absolutely not work. So I went ahead to cut out a new one and added 1 inch extra, which I should have added from the onset. Okay, so make sure it's just 1 inch extension extra, and then go ahead and cut out the other one, same length, same curve, but single piece. Okay, so now that I have this, I'm going to start showing you how to place this. So taking the part that is doubled, you're going to fold it into two, the part that is doubled. So if you have an overlocker, go ahead and overlock the edge, but I don't have that. Now you're going to sandwich your zip in between the main piece of your front piece and the shield, the zipper shield. So, and then you pin it together. So you'll notice that my zipper is opened, right? And the stopper for my zipper is at the base. So I'm pinning this, ensuring that I'm careful, pinning this very properly so that all of them are aligning and meeting very well. So I'm going to ensure that this is well placed. If you want to, you can actually go ahead and just run a stitch on the open ends of your zipper shield so that it's not like disturbing you while you're working with this. But if you have an overlocker, go ahead and weave the edge of it so that it just stays in place. So I'm going to pin this down, place it, sandwich my zipper in between the front piece and the shield. Place this down, ensure you're placing this very properly, placing them the right part. Okay, make sure it's placed very, very well. After you finish doing that, you go ahead and stitch it down. So this is what I have for mine after I stitched it down. You can see how this looks like. I've stitched the zip, so you're going to stitch it close to the end. Remember, we didn't add allowances to this, so stitch it close to the end. Just use minimal stitching allowance so that you don't encroach into the waist area. Okay, now we're going to take the single piece, that's the one that is open, which is this zipper fly. You're going to place it right side to your front piece and go ahead and stitch. So your stitching should be very minimal, about quarter of an inch. So I've done that, and this is what it looks like. And I also went ahead to stop stitch on it so that it's going to look nice. So now taking this way, you can see that this is looking nice already. Okay, by the time you flip that to the wrong side, you flip it to the wrong side and you place it, you can see that the zipper is already covered. You see that we don't have any folds around the front. So now I'm just going to pin this down and then flip it to the wrong side. I'm here to stitch my zip to the other side. So you're going to now bring in your pins again, and then you're going to pin your zipper to the single one. That's the one we just finished stitching. You're going to pin your zipper to that part, pin it properly, after which you go ahead and you stitch it down. Okay, so I finished doing that, and this is what it looks like. You can see that this is looking nice. I've removed my pin, so placing this way, you can see this is looking nice already. So the next thing we want to do is to give this like a finished touch. Now I'm going to just pin this other part, the part with the double the shield. Okay, pin it separately so that it doesn't encroach when I'm trying to stitch this other part. Now we're going to pin this way, turn this over to the right side. Now placing this way, I'm going to also pin this around this area. You're going to just pin it down. So we're always pinning on this, okay, this so that we have this coming out nicely. Now after pinning down, the next thing is to just, when we want to make like I don't know if you've noticed those stitching lines in front of the zipper fly. That is what we're trying to achieve. Okay, I don't know what it's called, but that is what we're trying to achieve. So now on that point, now to do that, I'm going to just measure 1 inch away from the edge. From that 1 inch point, you're going to just make a line going to where the zip ends. So you can see how my hands are going to move. If you cannot see the lines I'm marking, please just watch how my hands are moving so that you know. Take note of where the zip is going to end. So you're going to stop that curve before the ending part of your zip, where you have that iron where the zipper stops. So go ahead and just do that curve like that, and then you can see how my hands are moving, and then you go ahead and stitch. You can also double your stitch if you want to. So this is what it looks like after I finish doing that. So we've finished with our zipper fly. We can now open this up, so you can go ahead and just interlock the rough edges inside of this piece. So the next thing we want to work on is our pockets. You're going to bring in the pockets. Remember the parts where you notched, you place it right side to your short piece. Go ahead and stitch. Do the same thing to the other side. So this is what it looks like after I finish, and I also top stitched on this to ensure that this is relaxed. Now to finish up the pocket, this is how you're going to place it. So taking this part this way, we're just going to place it on top of the pocket bag. Ensure that you're aligning this properly, okay? And then you go ahead and stitch the open ends of the pocket bag. We're going to just stitch the way you have it open, the sides, the down part. So I'm using my pins to just hold this down first, so that when I go to my machine to stitch it's easier. And I've finished doing that. This is what it looks like after I finish stitching down. And you're also going to stitch your pocket piece to the top part. All right, stitch it to the top part so that it aligns with your waistline. Now we're going to bring in the back piece. We've gone ahead to stitch the darts just like we said, stitch the crotch area. Next we're going to align right side to right side. You go ahead and stitch the sides by half of an inch on both sides. Then you align the crotch area and also stitch it down. So this is what I have after I finished doing that. You can see how nice this is coming. Okay, now the next thing we're going to do is to work on the band. Now from the onset we said the band we're working with is 2 inches, whatever wideness of band you're working with. Okay, if you're using if you want your band to be 1.5 inches wide, you're going to cut a band of 4 inches. You're going to cut a fabric of 4 inches. If you want it to be 1 inch, you're going to cut 3 inches. So mine is 2 inches, which is what I mentioned earlier. So I've gone ahead to cut out a band. It measures 5 inches wide. I ironed my interfacing to it, and I folded half of an inch. Okay, ironed half of an inch on both sides of this. Now before placing this to the waistline, you can see what I have here is 2 inches already. Before placing this to the waistline, I'm going to turn this to the wrong side, and I will just close up one end of this. This is what I have after I finish closing that up. I'm going to just flip it to the right side. Now I'm going to bring in my piece, and I will be pinning my band around my waistline. So you need to pin this carefully. Take off the excess zipper you have at the top, and after that you go ahead and just pin it down. So pin it in a way that you can easily stitch this on your machine. You can see me, I was actually second guessing before I noticed that I wasn't placing this properly, and I went ahead to just flip it to the wrong side. So I'm going to just do the entire pinning out of the camera so that this video isn't too long. So you just go ahead and pin it down. As you can see, I'm tucking this inside, and I'm going to just pin it down all around. So I finished pinning. This is what it looks like. Now I'll go ahead and stitch it round, and then for the excess I have here, I'm going to do the same thing I have on this side. Stitch it and then take off the excess at the other side so that it aligns properly. So this is what I have after I finish doing that. You can see our waistband is sitting pretty. This is lovely. Now I'm going to go ahead and just hem the base by folding 1 inch twice, which I added for my seam allowance. That's the hemming allowance. This is what our short looks like. This is the finished look of our short. Now to properly finish this, we want to either attach a button to the waist, attach a hook and eye, attach a pressing button, and this is set for you to rock. So if you enjoyed watching this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and give the video a thumbs up. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.